Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, hello. Hope everyone's doing well. Brytaypodcast back at it again. I've literally been on a bit of a hiatus. Life happens, things happen, transitions happen, change, constant change. That's the best description I can provide regarding what has and has not been going on in what you would consider to be my life. I truly am glad that I'm back to doing this again. I think between me getting what I've receiving what I've received and having what I have, I can work harder on what I'm doing to basically give you all better content. I'm learning from a lot of things that I did good last year, and I'm working on things that I missed out last year. For instance, one feature you're going to finally get is when I'm sitting and telling you all stories about different things that I'm talking about. You'll actually have links that you can read or see as to what is referred in the specific podcast. So between YouTube, between Twitter, between Facebook, it'll be visible and available to go over. Hey, well, where is this story coming from, or what has you going into this topic or this conversation piece? So I am glad that we're where we are with this. It's gonna still kind of have a consistent flow as far as my musical, my gaming, my sports. I can kind of still divvy up between those, and it'll work out just fine. So I just wanted to at least share that with you all before we go right into the stories, to let you all know any listens, any feedback, any conversations that are provided regarding this are helpful. I actually just had, excuse me, I hope y'all heard that. I'm sorry. I literally yesterday did one of what I would define as my one-off podcast, and I can truly say with a straight face that I enjoyed every bit of it, because those are the podcasts that are enjoyed and valued the most because they're done the least, if that makes sense. I try to mainly keep my format the way it is, but I want to make it more creative and more improv, because coming up in April, I got a special project that I'm going to be working on, and some people are going to be very amused and entertained by what's coming. That's literally the best way to describe it. So without further ado, I'm not going to bore y'all with a bunch of brouhaha and randomness in the beginning for the first 2.5 minutes. Let's go into these topics and talk about what I have. If you're looking at the image now on your, if you're looking at it as you're watching this between either Spreaker or iTunes, or if you're looking at it through Facebook, I have quite a few topics to talk about. First topic I'll talk about, I have, actually it was a coincidence because I did it this way, kind of being petty, but also making a point. I found Westbrook's jersey from last year when he wore the sleeve jersey. And of course, the infamous LeBron James jersey, because LeBron last year was very adamant about, or last season was very adamant about how much he loved the NBA sleeved jerseys that are supposed to be this new trend or this new thing that's going on. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry, I will have random outbursts because I am watching the Kentucky game against South Carolina, so shameless low-key plug. Shout outs to Calipari, Mr. One and Done. But anyway, that's another story. I will be the first to admit, with these sleeve jerseys, I have, me being a blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna have my words together sooner or later. Me being a basketball player and being into basketball the way that I am, the last thing I would think of buying as far as the jersey goes is one that has sleeves on it. And that kind of ties into why I just have never been the biggest fan of these type of jerseys in the first place. It was an idea and it was a trend that worked, but it didn't work. And the NBA finally has decided, after many years and much fighting against it, it's time to sever those ties and let it go. And that's basically what they're doing, which the story was posted on the 17th, that the NBA will be getting rid of the sleeve jerseys, courtesy of Nike. It's not working. They've done different statistics, and I think, so the biggest reason, and I guess, so here's an add-on to it. Nike will be acquiring the rights to do the jerseys now, because initially it's always been, sound effects. It's initially always been it's been Adidas' game. Adidas has been the one who mainly has control of doing. They were kind of like the jersey go-to for the NBA. Well, the NBA, I guess, between collective bargaining, between life, between just change, they're going with Nike for next year. And Nike is going to be getting rid of those sleeve jerseys because it is atrocious and they're a waste of time. And I'm just not understanding why it's taking so long for people to realize that it's a trend that we just need to leave where it is and let it be what it is and move forward. So, that being said, I won't miss them, but I'm glad they're gone. That's really the best thing I can say because every time I think about them, the first thing that comes to mind is when when they show LeBron playing one year and he literally just ripped the sleeve from the jersey, but it was a coincidence because those were the same jerseys they wore when they beat Golden State to get Cleveland their first championship. And it's a big push so far. Looks like they're talking about the All-Star uniforms. I don't have them on this podcast. I will likely talk about them in the next podcast since we are going to be talking about the All-Stars. I would have threw that image in there, but they're not sleeves, so I didn't really bring it up as a topic. So going away from, sticking to sports, but also kind of staying consistent with the conversation piece of the NBA and what's going on. The All-Star starters were announced, and based on voting, Zaza Pachulia was the starter. Well, the players came together and thought it out and said, Zaza, that's nice, but no, not making sense. I am glad that they got that portion of it right because they were able to get Anthony Davis got his first start. He's been playing. I think he played as an All-Star in 2014 as a reserve, and I think that's the last All-Star game he's played in. So for him to get a starting position for the first time in a couple of seasons is a big deal. But to round out the Eastern and the Western All-Star picks, for the East, you have DeMar DeRozan, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I really was going to try to say that. Antetokounmpo. I'm lazy. I just call him the Greek Freak because that's just much easier. And Jimmy Butler. And for the West, your starters are going to be Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, and the Beard, James Harden. So, with that being said, and with that being talked about, I'm not sure if you all have not been keeping up with basketball, but it looks like Russell Westbrook did not get the nod for the All-Star game as the starter, which is odd because based on votes, I'm not sure why he didn't get it, but then also the other factor of it is the players truly didn't acknowledge, or whoever has involvement with voting didn't even blink an eye to add Westbrook to the mix. Now another starter snub that was a tough one was Isaiah Thomas because he's been playing out of his mind a little bit this season too, but the biggest one that was talked about, and I need to make sure before I continue that I bring these stats to the table because he's scoring 30.6 points a game, averaging a triple-double through 44 games, which is really not an easy task. That has not been done since the Big O, a.k.a. Oscar Robertson. So it's a very unique coincidence that they are... He ended up not being named a starter. So, of course, as the media does, they wanted to get questions and answers as to how he felt about it. And he stated that... I'm sorry. Well, y'all can't hear that, so it doesn't matter. He mainly stated that it is what it is. That's the nature of the business of the game. I just play. I don't play for all-star bids. I play to win championships, and every night I compete at a high level, and it'll work out. I just continue doing what I'm doing and play the game the right way, and everything else will work out. So long story short, it's making the all-star game is a big deal. But I mean, what? He actually got the all-star MVP the last 2 seasons. A lot of people forgot about that. So I think him not starting, he's more concerned about trying to win a championship, number one. And number two, everybody has spent so much energy talking about this, what some would consider to be a rivalry between him and Kevin Durant, which is very invalid. They are not even in the same boat. And going back to the All-Star game, I want to say one thing before I forget. I still find it funny that, number one, they don't have centers on the ballot anymore. So there's 3 forwards. It's 3 forwards, 2 centers. Shocked a little bit, but I'm actually glad that Carmelo's not starting this year, because Carmelo always starts and shouldn't be starting, but I understand it's a New York thing. It's kind of been an off and on thing this year since he's been talking about wanting to leave or whether they let him go and all this other stuff. So that story has been coming into play, but realistically, the only big man you have playing is Anthony Davis, and so it's gonna almost be like the Greek Freak would probably be the closest person to check him. But then you're in a tough spot because you got Durant with a long wingspan, Kawhi Leonard that can palm the ball with his eyes closed. So just something to think about. But yeah, going back to Westbrook, I mean, it's a tough call because you ended up guard wise, you had Stephen Curry and James Harden starting. So Steph Curry, I mean, two-time NBA MVP. Champion in the last, in the past, like a couple of years ago, going to the finals last year, having a good chance of going to the finals this year. And James Harden, who's been playing good basketball, Houston has actually been having a good season this year, which, by the way, is very surprising, but still early because I don't get too worked up about regular season, because when the playoffs comes around, you end up you're back at 0-0. So it's a matter of how you play from that point afterward as to what the outcome is going to be for your team. So I feel bad that Westbrook didn't start, but 9 times out of 10, he should get a spot on the bench. Like, he should be one of the first players that they name when the coaches come together and say, "Hey, who do we think should be on as a reserve for the West?" If Westbrook's name doesn't come up at all, something is wrong. So we'll keep an eye on that. I usually, if I can remember correctly, they usually pick the All-Star reserves this coming Thursday. So that'll be probably tying into my podcast either on this coming Friday or over the weekend, because I'm getting these down now to a better science and learning my time frame and how to do them and how to make it all just work. So that is where we are with that. And now the games of the weekend. There's a lot of basketball being on TV. Like I said, I'm watching the Kentucky game. They're up by 13. So I'm kind of watching but not watching. And it's been just kind of a chill game. UCLA lost early as a side note against Arizona, which was a shocker. Michigan State had a good chance of playing Indiana, but it looks like they couldn't close out. And I think Michigan State's going to have a rough season, meaning that Miles Bridges will go to the NBA. And I know this is like not in any of my videos, any of my images, and I haven't hashtagged to talk about anything related to college. But I just wanted to bring that up before I continued with my thoughts regarding this. But the NFL playoffs this weekend, if you haven't heard, they'll be tomorrow. Green Bay is going to be playing Atlanta, and Pittsburgh is going to be playing New England. Now, I want to be very, very transparent in what I'm about to say with both of these games. Both teams have all 4 teams are in tough matchups for unique reasons, and here's why. Green Bay, number one, has to go on the road to Atlanta, coming off of a close matchup with Dallas. And don't worry, I'm not going to do too much Dallas bashing, because I have a lot of Dallas friends who probably either are listening or will listen and give their thoughts as they see fit. So we're not going to let that be what it is. As far as the Green Bay Atlanta game, I think it's going to be a good game. So they projected the scores being 34-31 Atlanta. I'm going to go a little against the grain with this. And even though it's in Atlanta, matter of fact, I'm going to push, because I have to be honest. I feel like Atlanta has a good chance of winning this game. Like, Green Bay is nothing against them, and it's not even like on a personal level. It's just Atlanta has been a hot team. The tough part about this matchup is going to be that both teams are both playing very hot in their gameplay. So it's going to be who has the better run at what point of the game. Because that's what really impacted the Dallas-Green Bay game. As Dallas fans, y'all need to hear this and understand. You all set up the game to where you had a winning formula to cap it off and finishing by kicking the field goal and tying it up and all that type of stuff. But when it came to the portion of finishing the game, Rodgers had too much time in that type of circumstance, and you never know, because it's certain quarterbacks that if you just give them that type of time, they go do what they do. Perfect example is Tom Brady, who's in the second game. You give them the time they need to manage the game, they're gonna dominate and do what they feel. So with this game, like I said, I'm truly thinking that Atlanta's gonna bring it, but don't be fooled, or don't think that Green Bay is gonna be like a lackadaisical in how they play. Wow, like all of a sudden this game's gotten like randomly close for Kentucky and South Carolina, because it's like they've just been turning the ball over. It's one of the biggest Kentucky's biggest problems. So going away from the NFC game, I'm going to talk about the AFC game and talk about the importance of defense. Because it's going to be a very defensive-based game. I'm going to tell you that right first and foremost, to really make it, put things in perspective. Pittsburgh is who I'm going for. Now, I'm going to say it. I know that's just kind of a tangent or a side note of just me literally making all these comments and stories about the game and ready to make it like this big thing. Oh, it's defense. New England has a bunch of John Does. Pittsburgh has a decent amount of John Does who show up to play when it matters. I mean, you got James Harrison, of course, Tom Brady, Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown's going to be the biggest X factor in this game. I'm saying it now. You've heard it. If I'm back down on my word, then it is what it is. But if he has a good game, it's going to be a good game. If it's more he's kind of a no-show, it's going to be a tough contest against New England. I am in the anti-New England queue. So this is probably going to be my biased pick, and it has part to do with the Janet Jackson Super Bowl, but it has a lot more to do with I just don't have the biggest wow factor or wow fan factor for New England as a whole. I don't knock them for how they play. I get everybody talking about the whole them with the Spygate, Deflategate, all these gates that they need to just stop closing. But I'm not there with picking New England for this game. Even if they were to win, whoever they play in the Super Bowl, even if it was Green Bay, like I don't have a lot of my friends like Green Bay, and I'm cool with a lot of them. But then there's specific people who like them that I'm just not fond of. So it's kind of like the tie to Green Bay. But the New England scenario is I'm just not the biggest fan of New England at all. And that's probably me being just an adamant fan. It's not me knocking Tom. Like, Tom Brady is a player. He's a great player. Like, he's literally a first ballot Hall of Famer with his eyes closed. Like, he'll get into the Hall with no problem. Manning's going to get in the Hall with no problem when it's time for him to go up. So I don't put it on those factors. I just put it solely on just the team and their system and how it's ran. It's just not my scenario, but that's neither here nor there. So a lot of my New England fans, if y'all think I'm hating, no, I just don't like New England. I know that's like super contradicted, but it's truly how I feel. So those are my picks. Like I said, I'm going Steelers and I'm going Atlanta, and it's going to be this. The reason why I'm picking the Steelers is going to be, even picking the Steelers for that game is going to be hard, strictly because it's in New England. So there's certainly no sheer telling as to what could or couldn't happen with that outcome. So those are, like I said, those are my picks for the playoffs. We'll see how it goes. Next podcast, I'll see if I'll say, hey, I did well, or oh, I did horrible. I don't know what I'm talking about. So that being done, hope y'all got it. Everybody who loved and enjoyed the sports part, thanks for tuning in. If you want to stay around, I got more talked about of that, like getting rid of anybody, but I just wanted to let everybody know that's the sports section we're doing. So there we are. And now For my music junkies, if you want to hang around, I got some music conversation to talk about. So one of my coworkers is a music snob like I am. And it's a music snob status that a lot of people don't realize. So I'll give a briefing of like music snob. Typical music snob is a person that goes to a party. They enjoy themselves. They have a good time. They may drink and socialize and, participate. But they're paying attention to the DJ. And when I say paying attention to the DJ, they can pick up on the way that a DJ puts their performance together, such as how songs are played, how they come together, things of that sort. She's a music snob, and I am too. Like, I'm guilty of it. Like, I'll go to parties, and if I'm listening to how a DJ's playing, I'm like, okay, you just played that, or little stuff like that. So I'm guilty of that. And even with me, when I'm playing music, I try to make sure that I'm not a repeat offender of certain songs, because if you heard it once, you don't want to hear it again, unless it's beneficial for the purpose, which usually it's not. But that's not going to be talked about, because it's just one of those gray area scenarios. So she introduced me to a series that NPR does, and a lot of people know NPR talks about a lot of political news. It's a good radio station that kind of gives you a lot of information. Well, NPR now has taken on the music side of things, and they have NPR Music, which goes into this section called Tiny Desk. Now, the best way that I can describe it is their video, how they have it described is intimate video performances recorded live at the desk of All Songs Considered host Bob Boylan. So, to kind of give you an overview of the scenario of the environment, and if you've seen one, then you know what I'm going to know what I'm referring to. But you're in DC, you're at NPR, you're in this area. It looks like a library, and literally there are people sitting behind that area of the library who are like there, who work or just doing their regular everyday routine of things. And basically, you have this band who's in the front area performing for cameras, people who are just, up there to actually get a good performance, among other things. There are various performances. So the first performance that I got introduced to by my coworker, Dalen, if you're listening, shout outs, because I'm going to plug, because it's just me. But anyway, she had me listen to T-Pain's Tiny Desk. And I'm going to go ahead and state this now. It was a very unique situation to see T-Pain perform without auto-tune, because he actually did an excellent performance. And it was like, he actually can sing. This is very unique. But the thing is, the auto-tune thing for him is entertainment. Singing is his passion, his pride, or whatever. So, he does more producing like a lot of artists anyway, but in this case, you can tell he's really into, like, when the songs he did were just like, like he did Shawty Going Up, Down, I Ain't Got No Problem Spending All of My Money. But it wasn't in that format. It was like non-auto-tuned and actually him singing it. Like, he had a pianist, and he made that so petty and just so air horn borderline is all outdoors. But it was entertaining, and it was a good show. Like, he really did a great show. My shows that I've listened to on Tiny Desk, and if you like I said, if you're watching the podcast or you're keeping track of it, I have the link for the videos on their page, and they actually have an iTunes. They have a podcast on iTunes, so if you want to check them out there, just look up NPR Tiny Desk, and they have the video versions as well as the audio versions. If you're on the go, the audios work just fine, but if you want the video to kind of keep you amused for a second, it's definitely an amusing feature by far. But my shows that I've gotten into that kind of just pulled me and just snatched my soul all at one time would have to be Anderson .Paak. I can listen to his on repeat. Anthony Hamilton, he had a great show. Robert Glasper, of course, I've gotten into Robert Glasper over the last couple of months thanks to my trainer for my job. I was ready to say my job department. I was like, oh, wait a minute, can't say that. Almost messed up. But yeah, and doing my work, he, had a playlist, and we were all sitting in class like, well, who's that? Oh, that's Robert Glasper. And I, as soon as I found out, like the first opportunity I had, I let go of an artist on Pandora, bam, through that Robert Glasper playlist. And most times I listen to Robert Glasper before I listen to anything else, to get through life and all that it brings. So that's that scenario. And yeah, like I said, I love I liked Anderson .Paak. I like Anthony Hamilton's. Gucci Mane did a performance, and that was kind of like a fail for me, but it was like, hey, I get it, no big deal. I really didn't take it as much more than an attempt of a performance. The latest one that I listened to that I guess had been out for a while, but it just made it to iTunes or just made it to the podcast queue is Lila Downs. It's a Mexican folk based type of music, or like opera, but the way she performed it, like her first song, I'm just sitting there and I was like, I need to know what this means, because it sounds like a beautiful song. It sounded like a beautiful song. It's just knowing the words, but even still, I was able to enjoy it. But she did a pretty good performance from what I was able to listen to. So if you have a musical ear and you value and care about music, I would really recommend listening to Tiny Desk on NPR. Believe it or not, it's a good playlist or a good queue of songs to play to just kind of get through a couple of minutes. It's not really an hour based like a full album, but it's enough where it's like some of them can be 15 to 20 minutes, some of them maybe like 8 or 9 minutes, but it's still a good little play out to have to kill some time. So that's what I want to talk about with that for the music side. So switching gears really, really fast and going into my last topic and going into the biggest announcement, and I guess I was kind of mixing as to how I wanted to talk about this, because initially it was, okay, I'm just going to talk about the topic, tell you the release date, tell you what's coming, and that's it. But I was able to find a pretty good website that had some information that I think would help my techie guys and girls who are looking at buying the Nintendo Switch that is going to be released on March the 3rd. The price point for it right now is $300. They finally were able to give that information. But of course, when you buy a system, the system is not what matters. It's the accessories. Because what happens is you usually end up having to buy stuff that you need, such as a controller, an SD card, maybe a connector for USB purposes, things of that sort. I do like side note. I'm sorry. Looking at the screen for it, it looks like it's not bad as far as the pad size, because it looks like the pad size is actually smaller than the Wii U pad, because the Wii U pad looked like, anytime you broke that out somewhere, you like, okay, can that be played by itself, because that's like a lot of screen. But what I was going to talk about, or what I was going to say is, like I said, the release date for it is the 3rd. It's going to be $300. A couple of accessories that you may want to consider if you're looking at buying one is the micro SD card, which is a 64 gig, is $27.49. Certain pieces of software are going to definitely hit you in the pockets. Hit you in the pockets, but also hit you in storage. Prime example of this: the Switch itself is built in with 32 gigs of storage. But as a storage guru and anybody who knows managing to hold information, you literally can eat that storage space up in no time. Owning an Xbox One, I have a 1 terabyte, and my terabyte has been just not even scathed by, like, I literally have probably about enough storage to maybe put one more game, and I'm possibly looking to get that soon, which is Duke Nukem Anniversary Edition. So I'm gonna tell y'all about that hopefully when I get that game. But the storage side, so looking at storage wise, to read kind of over this, the capacity of the storage cards, like as far as the micro SDs, it can be up to a 2 terabyte in size. They have an SD card that is 256 gigs, and that's $150. But I think I got my 128 gig SD card for a lot less. So just an idea, something to think about. But yeah, they're recommending getting a micro SD card to hold more games because you're probably gonna run out of space as soon as you buy the system. So it's one of those, we thought it out, but we didn't think it out. But it's always the factor of storage and time and space and whatever. So you have that as an accessory to look at. The Joy-Con controllers, for those of you who have seen a Nintendo Switch, when you're looking at the screen itself, it has two little Joy-Cons or joystick connectors on the side. That's what I'm going to assume Joy-Con means is it's a joystick connector that's on the left and on the right that you are using to play the game. You can buy either one as a single gamepad, or you can buy them as a pair. Now, by their self, now it's kind of like here's the price point. Here's how they get you with trying to get money, and it's all about business. So you have to keep that in mind. And also, shout out to Polygon and all that way for this information because this is going to really help a lot of people. But the single Joy-Con is $49.99, so you're looking at $50. I always just round up because there's no point. $50 and some change, like 51 something. And for a pair, you're looking at about $82 because it's like $80 plus tax or whatever. Then there is the Switch Pro controller. Let's see. Nintendo has been Switch. So I'm assuming the Switch Pro controller is going to be the actual controller altogether itself. That price point is $70. So we'll see how that, whether you'll have a high need for that or not. And like I said, all of the images and all the information regarding this are on my on the podcast, excuse me. And they have the Joy-Con charging grip, which is used, I'm assuming, to charge these little bad boys when they run low on battery, because from what it's showing, we're gonna assume they're rechargeable batteries and not actual AA batteries that can burn out in 2.5. The charging grip is $30. The games themselves, you're looking at about, on average, $60, like most games anyway. Some games are going to be, and it's going to be interesting to see what your starter packs are going to be, if they give you any starter games, like to kind of give you or bundles rather for gaming. We'll let that all kind of pan out and see how it goes. But if you look at getting these items on an as needed basis, or if you're looking to try to even do the gaming process, it's $300 for the console, $28 for the SD card, $80 for the Joy-Con controllers as a pair, $70 for the Pro controller, $30 for the charging grip, and $60 for just one game. You spent or amassed nearly $600. So most people are probably going to be trying to do their best to do some sales to make some type of profit, to get a little bit of money to cover for purchasing those different items. And they don't take into account, and this is brought up too, there is a dock that you can hold that this screen goes into. Getting a second one of those, if you choose to have one, is $80. Or I'm sorry, wait, let me make sure I read that right, because I think I read it wrong. I'm sorry, it's $90. So you may need one of those, you may not. It's kind of going to be literally on an as needed basis. But that's just the Switch. The pad is mainly going to the docking station is mainly used to, if you connect it to that, then that's how it's kind of pushed and presented to the television. So just wanted to at least give you those specs and those details, because that was a little, like I had the initial, like I said, the initial article was just going to talk about prices, but when they showed prices, it was also based on other countries, and I'm like, I don't want to talk euros because I don't speak euro. I speak green, American, US dollar. But looking at these prices, it's going to be projected to be a good system. And like most gamers and most people who buy stuff, no one outright buys everything the first day. They buy everything in sets and in portions and in pieces. So just consider that when you're looking at the console. I think it's going to be a pretty good system. I just hope that they learn from their Nintendo Classic mistakes and not have like a very limited supply of systems available, because in doing that, it's not going to be beneficial in the long haul. I think that's all that I have. I'm glad that everyone is taking time to listen. For those who have been missing me doing these, I will be back to doing them more often. I still am working on getting co-hosts. I'm still having to pull a few strings. I got a few things in my plans, but I just got to talk to people about seeing if they're up to doing it first and kind of let it all just play itself out. But I am very excited. Like I said, all the links will be in the description for this blog. For this podcast, regarding each of the articles and topics that I've discussed. More things are to come. If you have any topics that you do want to hear, you're welcome to send me messages on Twitter, brytaypodcast, on Spreaker, at brytaypodcast, on Facebook. I have a Brytaypodcast page. You'll know it's my page because you'll see literally the microphone at the top of the page, and you'll see my brand, my logo that I've had worked on by one of my friends. Might be redesigning that at some point, but it's not really a massive / high priority right now. I'm just literally doing what I'm doing, making it work, and going to expand on what I got, because literally everything for me lately has been about the brand, and I, as a human being, have not been very well of treating the brand itself, aka Brytay Podcast, to its best. So I want to change that, and I'm going to change that, and I don't care how anybody feels about it, because I'm doing what I want to do. Nah, in all seriousness, I'm just ready to just like make changes and do what I do and make it be what it is, because it's a very big deal for me. So that being said, I hope you all have a great weekend. Be positive, be encouraging, do things that are worthwhile, that are going to benefit you in the long haul, because if you don't, no one else is going to care. And as a side note, the phone never rang during the entire podcast. Yay me. Alright, y'all. Y'all be easy, stay blessed, and I'm out. BT signing out.